Hey everybody, welcome to Cupboard Creations. My name is Gareth and this is my little corner of the internet for playing my food. Today I'm going to make a pulled pork and I absolutely love this stuff. Now this is going to be slow roasted in the oven and it's going to come in its own sauce, so it shouldn't dry out at all. Sometimes you can get pulled pork done, it tastes wonderful but it's just a little bit dry, but we're going to almost kind of braise it, so it's going to create all its own sauce in with it. Absolutely fabulous. And we're not going to go fully barbecue on this one. We're going to add in a bit of sort of influence from Italy, and that's just going to mean it's so much more versatile. Yeah, you can use this, it's great. Brilliant on tacos, you can use it on pizza, you can stuff kind of short crust pastry with it, and make lovely kind of pasties. Absolutely wonderful. So, very first thing we're going to need to do is grab our pork. We're going to have to take this over to the hob and sear it off. And we're going to use here between 1.5 and 2 kilos of pork. So if you, all of the other ingredients, they'll kind of work with that sort of amount. This one's about 1.7. And that's going to serve about 8 people quite happily. So let's crack over the hob and get it seared. Brilliant. So we've got a casserole dish up to temperature. You're going to need quite a decent sized one for this. You're going to shove it in the oven. Just basically, if your meat fits in it, you're good to go. So get this really hot and we're going to sear that pork off. So we've done just a load of black pepper, load of salt, kind of all around your pork, and then just drop it in and we're going to sear each side so we get a nice kind of colour to it. Woo! Tell you what, this really bit of a workout for the arms, this one. But that's what we're looking for. So you've just got kind of like little crusting caramelisation just on the edges. And then we can try and whip that out. Whack it on a plate, and then we can go make the marinade. Okay, so that's all done. Now time to make your marinade. Really simple. Grab yourself a bowl, and we're going to put in quite a few little ingredients to this, and they're going to have that kind of slightly barbecue-y, slightly Mediterranean feel. So you're going to start off with smoked paprika. You're going to want a whole tablespoon of this. Remember, we're doing massive pork shoulder with it, so well, say massive, you can get them much bigger, but that would do me. So, a tablespoon of smoked paprika in there. And then garlic granules. And you're only going to want a teaspoon of these, because we're going to put some garlic in the sauce as well. So a teaspoon of that goes in. Ground cumin. Now that one's a really good one. Kind of, you think slightly strange flavour to have, but that kind of brings in a bit of that kind of barbecue flavour. So you want 2 teaspoons of that in there. Whoop. And then brown sugar. So if you can keep it level, we want 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Try and get the smoked paprika off there first, because probably don't want it in there when I'm doing baking. So we put 2 tablespoons brown sugar in. There we go. That's all dried. So now we're going to go with our wet ingredients. We're going to want Dijon mustard, and that's going to add a nice kind of little heat kick to it, but not too much. So pop in a good teaspoon Dijon mustard. Make sure we get all of that off. Lovely. Ooh. Okay. So now honey. You want 2 tablespoons of honey. You are putting quite a bit of sweetness in here, but that's going to really work with that pork. So there's 1 tablespoon. There's 2 tablespoons. Put that in there. Again, move that off. And eat the rest because it's not quite as powerful as the mustard. And what next? Vinegar. It's kind of hard to remember all these things, but all these things do matter. So again, with this, you're going to want 2 tablespoons. So we're going to pop 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar in there. And that is essentially your marinade. Now, just give it a mix up really. So using a spoon, and all of those dried ingredients, you'll get like a paste by the end of it, which is why there's no need to add any water or oil or anything like that. That paste will do. Lovely. Now you just want to put that to the side and baste your pork. Now you're going to use about 3/4, 2/3 to 3/4 of it. Save a bit for later, because then you can keep basting it as it's cooking. You'll just get kind of more of a crust. So I'm going to pour all of this, well, not all of this, almost all of this. Ooh, bit of honey still at the bottom. Over the top. And then you can use your hands, but then you'll be washing your hands a lot. So something like a pastry brush, just to move it around, pick it up and smear it all over the sides. Okay, so that's nicely basted there. We can pop that to the side, and we're just going to prep a few little things ready to make that sauce that it's all going to sit and braise in. So you're going to want to chop some onions and garlic. You're going to want 2 onions and 3 cloves of garlic for this. So we'll start with the onions. Perfect. So that's all we need to prep over here. Now we can go make that sauce. So just turn that on, get that to a low heat, and then we're going to sweat off the onions. So first thing you want, for about 8 minutes or so, just pop all your onion in there and keep sweating it. And what that will do as well is that will help kind of bring any of those crunchy bits of pork that are stuck to the bottom and help lift them. You just, yeah, you can hear it's really kind of, there's a fair bit down there, but that's all great flavour. So in that oil and stuff left over from frying the pork, just kind of stir them around, give them 8 minutes on a low heat, and they'll start to wilt. That's looking great. So now those onions have softened, I'm just going to pop in our garlic, and then I'm going to pop in 2 kind of chipotle chillies. So what I've done with these is I've just rehydrated them in kind of boiling water for 10-15 minutes beforehand, and then you can pop those in. Don't worry too much if you can't get chipotles. I mean, you can get the paste, so all you'd need is a teaspoon of paste, would be about the same. I love doing it with kind of fresh ones, as fresh as chipotle can be, because they're all smoked, just because then I can pull it out at some point. You know, some person can have a bit of one, you can chop a bit more into theirs or less. So love using those, and I've got a load, so it's great. But yeah, a normal chipotle paste, just a teaspoon in there will do. Again, just kind of soften down the garlic with that for about another 3 minutes. Fabulous. So that's all softened. Now we can really get to it. So you're going to want a tin of chopped tomatoes, 400-gram tin. Pop those in there. And then we're going to add to that a few little things to kind of enhance all those flavours. And they're going to be a lot alike. So we're going to add red wine vinegar in again. So you want 50 mils of that. Just going to add that little depth of flavour. And then brown sugar. So I'm using the kind of soft, light brown sugar. You want 50 grams. So that can go in there. Because this is a sweet meal. It's got a real nice flavour to it. So then to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of oregano. I really like that herbiness in here. Just adds that little bit more flavour to it. And you're really going to taste it at the end. You're going to have this kind of sweet, barbecue-y, herby, Mediterranean type pulled pork, which is fabulous. So then the last thing you want to add is about 100 ml of water. So what I'm going to use is the liquid that I kind of had those chilies rehydrating in, but cold water, perfectly fine. So I'm going to add 100 ml of that in. There we go. Perfect. Now we're going to give that a bit of a stir around, just to kind of mix it all together. Okay, so now that's all mixed through, we can just going to lay that pork shoulder right on top. Try not to drop it in or you'll splash it all over yourself. And get some of those juices, baste it over the top again. Lovely. And there we go. Now we're just going to bring that up to a simmer. Oh, stop it. So, sorry about that. We're going to bring that up to a simmer now. So we can pop the lid on just to get it going. And right now, just kind of turn your oven on, get it up to about 140 degrees C. So we're going to do this low and slow for a very long time. But it's worth it. It's going to taste fabulous at the end. So once that starts simmering, by then, oven should be up to temperature. Catch you in a sec. Fantastic. So that's kind of bubbling away now. I love this bit because all of that effort now of getting everything ready and chopping and putting it all, we now get the payoff. That's going to be perfect. Just going to pop the lid on and we're going to whack it in the oven. We're going to keep that in the oven 140 for the next 4 hours. Just going to come in probably every hour and a half or every hour. Just turn that pork over just so we get that kind of crusting that will happen on the top. But it will keep it nice and juicy with all of that liquid bubbling away. And that will just create the best sauce for it. So let's pop that in. And I'll see you in 4 hours time. Okay everyone, so that's been a couple of seconds for you. Nice good 4 hours for me. So we're just going to get it out now. And we're going to turn down the oven. But what we want to do first is give it a lovely baste. So we want to pop that off there. And you'll start to see as slightly starting to kind of caramelise and go a little bit brown. But it's going to get more and more. Because what we're going to do now is we're going to crank that oven up to 200. And what that's going to do is that's just going to caramelise the outside even more. So all we need to do now is with our remaining marinade is just give it a good old brush over. You know, use up the rest of that marinade just to get all that really lovely flavour in there. You're going to have to be gentle when you turn in the meat now because it's going to be pretty delicate. But with any luck, you can just about hold it in place. And there we go. Give that a baste on. And that will all kind of just melt down into that sauce. Give you something really, really delicious. There we go. So now, like I said, we're going to pop that lid back on, stick it in at 200 for 30 minutes. I said pop the lid back on. I'd already told you we're taking the lid off. It's not going to reduce otherwise. So keep the lid off and then whack it back in the oven for 30 minutes. Right, so we're finally there. We're finally at the end of cooking. And now we've got this beautiful lump of pork shoulder, which is going to be fairly hard to get out. Oh, there we go. Absolutely wonderful. All that's left to do now is get your string off, take off the fat off the top, and then we're going to kind of mix it all up, shred it into little bits. We're going to add it back into that wonderful sauce. And that's just going to kind of, once you've got the whole shoulder back in there, it will soak all of that up and you'll just get so much more flavourful pulled pork. So let's give it a go. So there we go. The fat's off and the string's off. And you can see it's just 2 forks and you can just pull it away. And then just shred it up. Absolutely delicious. Then all you do is pop those shredded bits back in. Give it a good mix around when it's done. That is perfect. Lovely. And that's going to taste so delicious. With all of that tomato and the oregano, as well as those kind of classic barbecue flavours, you're just going to get something that kind of goes so well with anything. Like I said, works for tacos, works for pizzas, works for pasties, pretty much works on a brioche bun just on its own. All you need to do, grab yourself something, shove a load in the end and munch away. So I'm going to enjoy this because, you know, perks of the job and all that, and I always get first dibs. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you do give it a go. it is a long cook. It's a really delicious cook, and it is worth it at the end. But don't get me wrong, it takes its time. But that's how you get the best food. So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you give it a go, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.